Coming back to Australia, and speaking of DEI, we know that Dutton has made some great calls in terms of there'll only be one flag should I be in government, and also making sure that Australia Day is celebrated as a proud day in our nation. All good things, and we've all been applauding. But when asked today about whether or not him cracking down on PC behaviour and entering into the culture wars, finally a budding Prime Minister happy to do so, he said that that would not extend to following in Trump's footsteps, i.e. leaving the Paris Accord. Here he was today.
I think that the debate about the 2035 target is a very real one, because at the moment Australians can't afford to pay their grocery bills, they can't afford to pay their insurance bills, they can't afford to pay their school fees, and the bills just keep stacking up under Anthony Albanese. And now the Prime Minister is proposing to drive up electricity prices even higher, but he just won't tell you by how much.
Would a coalition government remain in the Paris Accord?
Yes, we will, and I've said that before. Yeah.
Someone make that make sense. You just contradicted absolutely everything you said prior to that last little bit there. Don't talk Trump's talk and hope that it's going to whisk you into Parliament as Prime Minister if you're not going to walk the walk. We all know Australia is failing dismally at every target under the Paris Agreement anyway. So whose interests are you serving? Trump has pulled out of the Paris Accords because he is America first. It is not serving America's best interests, and so he's out. Well, guess what? It's not serving Australia's best interests either. So whose interests are you looking after here? Because it's not ours.
Well, I think he's looking after his own interests. He's starting to make great headway in the polls. He looks for all money like he'll actually turn Albanese into a one-term Prime Minister. And so whatever he might believe privately about the Paris Accords, he's not touching that. Have you noticed he's done nothing about it?
But then you're insinuating that leaving the Accords would lose him votes. We know that the opposite is true.
No, I'm not insinuating anything. I'm simply saying I think he's being very pragmatic as a politician. He hasn't touched transgender issues either, another obvious one. But why would he take heat from the media when he's clearly got his nose in front? He's happy to just keep trucking, don't upset the apple cart.
Well, he's also got the teal sitting on his shoulder, and that's the push and pull of the Liberal Party at the moment, in the same way that the Labor Party has experienced this in terms of a desire to go further to the left to try and abate Greens votes in the inner city. The Liberal Party now has to wrestle with the idea of whether they go further to the left to try and abate teal votes in the inner city, and not just the inner city, some of the richer suburban parts of Australia as well. That's the biggest problem for him, is that there are very powerful people within his party who absolutely believe that we must remain as part of the Paris Accord. And if you go around starting to say, well, I'm going to do something about that, he'll have to deal with the fallout of it within the party. It will be ripped in two. That's the troubled line that he is trying to walk. But I think the problem is that if you cannot clearly state what a position is for your party, and that was not a clear statement. That was, on one hand, I believe this, but on the other, I'm going to do this. You end up in this blancmange of not actually believing in anything at all.
Exactly.
And then you lose
so
votes,
weak.
Right?
It's so pathetic. You can't say, as this headline did today, oh, Australia's had enough of DEI and they're sick of the PC stuff and it doesn't pay the bills. And then at the same time be like, even though there's a lot of momentum behind it at the moment, I'm not going to pull out of the most expensive commitment our nation's ever made, which is not to us, but to global powers. This is a World Economic Forum agenda. This is a United Nations agenda. The people who pull these strings, none of us elected, and we don't care about what they think is best. We want what's best for our nation. I just think it's so incredibly hypocritical that he is riding Trump's coattails and loving all the, oh yes, let's diss DEI, let's get into these culture wars, when the most expensive part of the culture wars, buddy, is the climate stuff. So if you're going to keep worshipping at that altar, how many people in that spiel that you just did are going to make life more affordable under a Liberal government if you're the boss?
Which is why he couldn't wait to just dismiss that question. You notice he didn't try to justify why he would remain part of the Paris Accords. He just said, yes, we'll be part of it, move on.